Hello everybody, and welcome to this second episode of my tech tree analysis series. I am doing the Japanese tech tree, but it's taking a bit longer than I expected, so I'm just going to go and do the Russians first. Bit out of chronological order, I know, but as long as we can still get the information, that's good. Probably going to be a little less in depth than the British one. Well, that wasn't necessarily in depth, but dragged on for quite a while, so I sort of tried to detail every single variant. Good news is I finally found one of my books that I usually use for World War II aircraft. I've got a big chunky book, but it was about £40 when it came out. But I got it I've got it for £4 from a charity shop. It's a big chunky book, about 600 pages in all. Not entirely sure when it was printed. I'll try and find that. But it actually has it has a lot of information. But my cheap little Weapons of World War II book that actually, which is a lot less in depth, only a few hundred pages, is actually, well, it actually has more information in some cases. So I'm probably going to be relying on that a little bit. Now that we've got that out of the way, we'll get on to our first aircraft. Well, actually, before we get onto the first aircraft, let's just take a quick skim read of the tech tree. As we can see, no Lavochkin, I'll probably mispronounce that, Polikarpov, only one aircraft there. No, I'm just going to call them MiGs. No new MiGs added. No new heavy fighters, few light bombers, attackers, not really much, just old two variants. Flying boat, this is the first flying boat the Russians actually have, so that's quite important. Maybe shows Gaijin are sort of starting to move towards a more naval-orientated battles, or maybe in anticipation of the warships being added, boats. It could just be because they want to sort of like add them into all the nations now to complete them all. Quite a few long-range bombers. As we can see, we only had the UR-2s and the R-4. We've now got the PE-8, TU-4, and the DB-3. So if we count that the UR-2s as just one variant, we've actually doubled, more than doubled, the amount of aircraft for, well, long-range bombers. And we've got the frontline bombers, just two added there. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's move on to the aircraft properly this time. Now, the first aircraft on here in the Yakolev line is the Yak-1. I did have a bit of trouble finding out information about this, so I quickly hopped over to the War Thunder, because as we know, we've got the Yak-1B, and some of the aircraft, you can get information about them. So let's quickly pop over there to find out more. Here we are at the tech tree. Now, going to the Yak-1B, read through this information quickly. We can see that for the Yak-1B, the main attempts were to try and increase the top speed, and I believe improved armament. Where is that? Armament and cockpit improved rearward visibility. Now, of course, that is the Yak-1B, but we can see from this the Yak-1 had a weaker armament, less visibility, and possibly a bit slower. Now, based on that information, I found my book about the same time as I found out this information, and it seems that the wingtips were made a bit narrower on the Yak-1B. I'm not exactly an expert on aerodynamics, but I'm assuming that must have made it a bit faster. I don't know the exact speed of the Yak-1 compared to the Yak-1B. I'll try and find that out. But I think they replaced the. It's got what the Yak-1B has the 112.7mm machine gun. I believe the Yak-1, if I'm correct, had two 7.92 Shikaz. I've probably got it wrong. You're probably familiar with it on the I-16, the biplanes. But anyway, they updated it to the Berezin 12.7mm machine gun. So, oh wait, I found it was Shikaz. Yep. So a bit like the BF-109 E1 and E3. The E1 having weaker armament, not much difference between the two really. Maybe a bit faster, but other than that, not too much difference, I don't think. Now, the next plane on the list is the Yak-7. As before, we've got the Yak-7B. So we'll quickly pop over to War Thunder again and quickly read up what the Yak-7B is, see if that will tell us anything about the Yak-7. And we're back at the Russian tech tree again. The Yak-7B is actually a lower tier than the Yak-1B, so possibly that tells us something about it. Now, there isn't too much information. Based on the Yak-7 UTI, which was a tandem seat advanced trainer based on the Yak-1. Now, my books do mention the Yak-7 being designed as a two-seater trainer version for the Yak-1. Now, it doesn't really tell us anything else beside that, so I had to obviously look online, read through my books. So let's quickly go back to the guide, to the normal background. So after this, I did some looking through my books and looking online, and I found out, I believe, that the Yak-7 was well, the same as the Yak-1 and the Yak-1B. It had the Yak-7 had the two 7.92mm machine guns, had them replaced with the UBS 12.7mm. It was also quite a bit slower, about 30 miles an hour, maybe, or it might have been 30 kilometers an hour. I can't remember now, but. So again, sort of BF-109 E1 and E3 comparison, it doesn't seem to have been that much different. Not that much difference between the two. The Yak-7B just being a natural progression, upgrading of armament as the war went on. So again, not particularly looking forward to these two fighters. Not exactly, not that I don't want them or that I won't fly them. Just not something I'm going to get particularly excited about. So let's quickly move on to the next aircraft. Now, the next aircraft on our list are the Yak-9 and the Yak-9B. We've already got the Yak-9T, the Yak-9K. So again, we'll quickly pop over to the War Thunder game to see if there's any information there we can glean about the Yak-9 and the Yak-9B. So here we are on the actual game. Here we've got the Yak-9TK. Can't find. Oh yeah, 9T is there as well. Let's quickly find out the information here. Now, we know it was the first combat aircraft designed by Alexander Yakovlev's Construction Bureau, and it was the most mass-produced Soviet fighter of the war, the Yak-9, that is, not the Yak-9T. So, obviously pretty good, in production until almost 1949, so it must have been very good. Further modification, the Yak-1, Yak-7 was a redesign of the Yak-7, with external differences. Yak-9 was at the same time much more advanced internally. 2 years of design, combat experience. Let's just skip through that. Aluminium. Oh, as it said, doesn't say if it uses aluminium, but I'm guessing it does if it mentions it. Weight was significantly reduced, meaning more fuel could be stored, and the aircraft could be equipped with more powerful weapon armament and specialised equipment. Now, it doesn't particularly say anything else about the Yak-9 or the Yak-9B. Yak-9K doesn't have information, not too unexpected. So let's quickly pop back to the tech tree. Now, having looked at the War Thunder website, game, not website, I obviously went back to my books and internet again. It seems the main difference between the Yak-9 and the Yak-9, well, the Yak-9 and the Yak-9B were both faster than, well, they were both a lot faster. The Yak-9B might have been a bit slower than the Yak-7B, I can't remember. The Yak-9B, from what I can tell, was intended more as a fighter bomber, while the Yak-9, I believe, was more of the fighter. Now they both had the standardised armament. The Yak-9 having both having the 20mm cannon and the 12.7mm machine gun, while also being, like I said, quite a bit faster in most cases. So again, seems like it's just going to be a natural progression of the Yak-7B with more powerful armament, with the Yak-9B taking on more of the fighter bomber role. I'm not sure if it'll probably be used in War Thunder exclusively as a fighter. I think it only takes like 8 how many kilograms of bombs? Oh, I've lost it now. Let me just find it. 400 kilograms worth of bombs, which isn't going to be an awful lot, especially at higher tiers where it likely is going to be operating. So again, looking forward to him a bit more, but not, greatly excited. I generally don't get excited about fighters anyway, but yeah, nothing to particularly get me excited in these two aircraft. Now the next aircraft on here is the Yak-30. There's apparently two Yak-30s, with this being a Yak that was a bit of a prototype. Now, unlike the other ones, War Thunder doesn't have a Yak-30, so I couldn't go over there and find out information about it. Also, unfortunately, most of my books deal with World War II, and the ones that do deal with the modern era, apparently, because this is a prototype, I never actually could find any information, so I had to kind of exclusively rely on the internet for this. So anyway, I went on the internet, quickly found a Wikipedia article on it. Yeah, there was a Yak-30 in 1960 and a prototype in 1948, 1946, 1948. Sorry. So yeah, there was a bit of confusion about that on the forums at first, with people thinking Gaijin were just adding in like ultra modern aircraft, which wasn't. But anyway, I quickly looked at the stats. It, according to the Wikipedia article, it had a top speed of about 636 miles an hour, and it had a rate of climb. It said something like, I can't remember the exact number now, but it was doing it in meters a minute rather than seconds. So I did quickly divided it by 60 and came up with 41 meters a second. Now that seems like a lot. That seems quite an insane amount of rate of climb. I don't know if the Wikipedia article's wrong on it. Like I said, I haven't really got any books on the Yak-30, so I had to rely on that. But that seems like it would be quite a good climber, which would also be quite good. Well, it'd be quite good as a bomber interceptor, because high rate of climbing. It has 3 23mm cannons, so obviously this would be able to quickly, it would be able to go quite well, very fast, quickly gain a lot of altitude, and blow bombers out of the sky. This may be the what Gaijin were talking about. They hadn't added in some of the jet bombers, because there was no way to really intercept them. This may be why they're starting to add in the jet bombers, because the Yak-30 and maybe other aircraft like it will be able to finally sort down those aircraft. So I'm looking forward to that a lot more. I don't really fly jets, mainly because I haven't actually unlocked any, but yeah, I'm not trying to get there too fast. But yeah, I might try and grind down the Russian tree to get that a bit quicker. So we finished the Yakolev line, so quite a few, mainly just fighters, it mainly early production models, Yak-30 being the only one that really shines for me at least. And we'll move on to the Polikarpov. I'll probably mispronounce that, I'm sorry if there's any Russians watching. Now the next plane on our list is the I-16 Type 5, not Type 3. Now, my books didn't actually have this listed. The smaller book did have the I-16, but didn't have the Type 5, while the big, bulky, expensive book naturally just didn't. For some reason, didn't seem to list it. I'm starting to think this book wasn't actually all that good. But I digress. So again, had to rely on the internet. Went on the Wikipedia article, and as far as I can tell, it's just a more streamlined version of the Type 4, which was the first production model, the I-16. So it did have a slightly different engine, but I believe it was a weaker engine, 700 horsepower compared to the Type 24, which had a 1,100 horsepower engine. So 700 versus 1,100. Not really convinced this is going to be a very good fight. Armament wise, I don't think it's much different. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing it's just going to be the 4 7.62mm machine guns. So not particularly looking forward to this fighter. I mean, it's good to have more of the I-16s for low tier battles, but yeah, not really looking forward to it. So that's the one aircraft added to the Polikarpov line of Russian fighters. We'll go on to the attackers and light bombers. Which really it's just the IL-2s that have been added. Now the 2 aircraft that have been added here are the IL-2-1, I'm guessing an early production model of the IL-2, or perhaps the first production model of the IL-2 series even, and the IL-2M NS-37. Now the NS-37 I believe is a high caliber cannon. Didn't have much information in my books about these particular variants. Lots of information about the IL-2 and the IL-2M, but hardly anything on the actual specific variants. So I quickly went into War Thunder. Well, we're quickly going to War Thunder now, actually. Here we are in War Thunder. Now, where's the old 2s? Here's the old 2. Quickly go into information again. What's the information about? Right, it doesn't actually tell us anything about specific variants. We'll quickly check on the old 2M. Where is it? There it is. Quite a big gap. Old 2M AM38 doesn't actually say. So again, it doesn't really say anything here. So right to go to the internet and quickly find some more information. However, even after looking online, I couldn't really find much information. The old 2M37, well, that was much easier. That it was the old 2M armed with two 37mm NS37 cannons rather than the 23mm cannons. But it also had a reduced bomb load, and I believe it was quite hard to sort of aim and fire the 37mm cannons, so they weren't really built in that huge numbers. It wasn't particularly successful from what I understand. The old 2-1, well, I haven't really found anything on it. I found some information on an old 2I, or which possibly could be the old 2-1. It's possible there's a misprint here. That was an armored. That was a prototype of a fighter version of the old 2, from what I understand. But I really don't think this is what they're talking about here. Sorry, I can't find much information about it, but everywhere I've looked, I haven't been able to find anything on it. The only other thing I can think of is this is one of the early variants with a slightly different engine, or possibly one of the first two-seaters. I believe they originally had 2 seats and then went to the normal 1 seat for the old 2 and then went back to it for the old 2M. But like I said, I can't really find much information on it, so I'll do some digging. If I find anything, I'll let you know. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to, I don't, for the moment, I can't really add anything to them. Now, we've gone through the attackers and light bombers. We'll move on to the flying boats now, because there's only one of them, in the form of the MBR-2. Now, this was introduced before World War II as the MBR-2. When World War II broke out, or just before it broke out, had it sort of redesigned and improved and named it the MBR-2 BIS. I'm guessing that will be the version we get in the game. I think it would be rather odd if we got the pre-war version. I could be wrong, but it could go about 154 miles per hour as its max speed. Now, the only other slow plane, the only other planes that really go that slow are the biplanes and the TB3, which struggles to make 100 miles an hour when I've used it. And it's only got I think it's only got 2 7.62mm machine guns in the dorsal turret and the bow, and only carries about 300 kilograms worth of bombs. So, not sure what sort of role this is going to take. Sorry. I mean, it seems like they've just sort of put it in there just to sort of say, oh, it's there, and it's not really going to be all that useful. I mean, these were mainly used around the Baltic and Black Sea, so I suppose they didn't need to be as good as like their allied counterparts. I mean, there wasn't as much naval combat in the around the Soviet Union on the Eastern Front as there was for like other sectors of the war. So it'd be nice to have it, but I'm not particularly looking forward to it. Although there is one small little fact: this actually uses a pusher propeller. It has the propeller at the back of the aircraft and pushes it rather than, like with most planes where it's at the front. And so yeah, small one fact about that aircraft. Quickly move on to the frontline bombers now. Now, the 2 bombers that have been added to the frontline bombers for the Soviet Union are the Tu-14 and the R-28, both of which are jet bombers or jet attack aircraft. So this is quite important because we've only got one jet bomber in the game at the moment in the form of the Arado, and that's not, which isn't exactly the best bomber in the world. So this is quite a big addition to the Soviet Union and to jet combat in general for the game. As usual, we'll deal with them one at a time. So let's move on to the Tu-14 first. Now, this was a jet bomber introduced in 1952. Now, interestingly, it was used as a torpedo bomber by the Soviet Soviet naval aviation. That's the word. Sorry. There are two forward-facing 23mm cannons and two 23mm cannons in the tail of the aircraft. So quite powerful. So it seems to be a bit of a running theme with Russian bombers to have the well, at least with the PE-2, they have forward front-facing guns as well as guns in the turret. So sort of carrying on with that sort of doctrine, I'm guessing. So it'll be quite powerful. It'll have a decent amount of defence. Its bomb load. Bomb load was about 3,000 kilograms, I believe, of bombs, mines, or torpedoes. So quite a decent amount of bomb load. And its max speed was, I think, about 520 miles an hour, 525. So quite fast. I mean, some of the other jets, I'm thinking the new British jets will be able to catch it quite quickly, but it seems like a good addition for the Soviet Union. And considering it was used as a torpedo bomber, I'm guessing it will have a bit of, maybe suggest there'll be a bit of a more of a naval combat type role in the future. I'm hoping there will be, because I don't have any jets yet, but it must be a lot harder to sort of deal with naval units when you've only got bombs rather than torpedoes. Now the next plane on our list, where is it? There is the Al-28 jet bomber. Now we've actually got a bit of information on it down here. I forgot about this earlier. Used the VK1 model engines, which are based on the Rolls-Royce Nene engines, which were received by the USSR from Britain under an obligation not to use it for military purposes. I may have mentioned in my British Tech Tree episode that these were actually used. I believe that the Nene engines were actually used to power some of the MiG engines, or to reverse engineered for use in the MiGs during the Korean War. Now, as it mentions here, it's got one very flexible twin cannon turret mounted in the tail to protect the entire rear hemisphere. I believe there's a two 23mm turret at the front of the aircraft as well. I'll have to double check that in a minute. And it could reach the speeds of about roughly 580 miles an hour or so, 590 possibly, and it carried about 3,000 kilograms worth of bombs, I believe. So again, quite a powerful aircraft. This is going to definitely shake up the the higher tier games, because bomber aircraft probably, I'm guessing, don't survive that long in those sort of tiers. Apparently this was actually not added because there was no aircraft capable of intercepting it. So I believe that was the message given out by Gaijin. So obviously they must be, well, they must feel they are or will be aircraft soon capable of intercepting this sort of bomber. So I'm looking forward to it being added into the game. Hopefully I will have unlocked jets myself by that point. So yeah, definitely looking forward to the R28 and the Tu-14. Now the last section of this video will deal with the long range bombers. I've got some books on these bombers, or some of them at least, so I'll hopefully do a lot better than I did with the jet bombers. You could probably tell I had to sort of use the internet for them. I do have the books on one or two of them, but they're sort of packed away at the moment. But the first bomber on the long range bombers is the DB3. Now, we've got the R4 in the game, so like with some of the other aircraft, I've popped over to War Thunder to try and find out some more information, which I will quickly show you now. So we're here on the War Thunder game. Let's go to information for the R4. Now, it's a further development of the Alshin DB3 bomber. Redesigned cockpit, wings, landing gear, new fuselage. So based on that, we can tell the DB3 probably was a little less developed. The pictures I've got, you can see the similarities between the two, but they're definitely, DB3 definitely looks quite not very streamlined. So we'll quickly go back to the research tech tree. Now the information I have here is that the DB3 had three 7.62mm machine guns, same places as the R4, the nose, the tail, and the waist. So bit weaker in armament, because I believe the R4 gets a 12.7mm machine gun in the rear turret rather than the 7.7. The turret itself looks actually a lot better designed on the DB3. It's a lot flatter, which I suppose makes it less likely to be hit. if we go to other weaponry, the bomb load. Now the DB3 could carry 1,500 kilograms compared to the R4's 2,500 kilograms. Other than that, they seem to have the same range and service ceiling. The DB3 actually seems a bit faster, which is weird because it actually has a slightly less powerful engines. 950 horsepower compared to 1,500 to the on the R4. But it also seems to weigh a lot less. As far as I can tell, weight when empty is about 600 less than the R4. So not particularly looking. I mean, I'm looking forward to any bombers being added, but not exactly the bomber I'm looking forward to the most. But it'll be good to see it in game anyway. So yeah, let's move on to the next bombers. Now the next plane on our list is the PE-8. Now I will have to probably rely on internet sources for this. Because for whatever reason it's not listed in any of my books again. Seems to be a bit of a recurring theme here, but I'll try and do my best. Now the PE-8 was apparently the only 4-engine bomber built in the Soviet Union during World War II. There was other bombers, the TB3 for example, but as far as I'm aware they weren't built during the war. I'm guessing that's what the article was referring to. Now it was armed with two 20mm machine guns, cannons, two 12.7mm machine guns and two 7.62mm machine guns, and could carry about 5,000 kilograms worth of bombs. Now, unlike the TB3, this could go quite fast, about 275 miles an hour. The TB3, for any of you who haven't got it, is actually ridiculously slow. I mean, if you go in historical battles, it goes about 100 miles an hour, and even then you'll be getting a stall indicator every now and then. An 4-engine bomber, quite a bit of speed, quite a lot of payload. I'm actually quite looking forward to this, as well as a decent defensive armament. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the PE-8. I mean, it would be a very good addition to the Soviet Union, maybe in the mid-tiers. It has a lot of twin-engine bombers, the Russian tech tree, but not many, well, no 4-engine bombers at the moment, unless you happen to have the TB3. So I'm definitely looking forward to this bomber. Now the last bomber on our list is the Tu-4, which was, for those of you who don't know, a reverse-engineered B-29 Super Fortress. 3 or 4 of these ended up in the Soviet Union after bombing raids on Japan. Because Russia was technically neutral until right up until the end of the war with I think it was Operation August Storm. I probably got it wrong, but so the crews were returned to the USA, but the aircraft were interned, and they were quickly reverse engineered so the Soviet Union could get a strategic bomber. Because they had very good tactical bombers, but they don't really seem to have had many great strategic bombers. The main difference is between the B-29 and the Tu-4. The Tu-4 seems to have been about 15-20 kilometers slower, and instead of the Browning machine guns, it had 23mm cannons. These were twin 23mm cannons, so quite a lot of power in them. For those of you who already find it a pain attacking B-17s and B-24s, you may want to avoid the Tu-4 because you will be ripped to shreds pretty quickly, I'm guessing. Another difference was the aluminium was slightly thinner, or I'm not entirely sure why. I can't remember. I think the Soviet Union industry wasn't able to produce the right aluminium or produce it in required quantities, so it was a bit. I don't know if that will affect the strength of the Tu-4, make it easier to shoot down. Now the Tu-4, as far it could carry well, the B-29 could carry quite a lot of bombs. I'm not entirely sure of the right number. No, I found it. About 9,000 kilograms the B-29 could carry. Now the Tu-4 online it says it could carry about 6,000 kilograms, or more specifically, 1,000 kilogram bombs. It's possible they've just that's just what it usually carried. It's possible it could carry more than that. It could also carry rockets and missiles and nuclear weapons. I don't think we're going to get them, unfortunately, but I'm definitely looking forward to this. I've always been really good with bombers. So definitely looking forward to those 23mm cannons to help me make my bombing deliveries. So that was the last plane on our list. So that's the end of this analysis of the Soviet tech tree. I'll leave a link to the tech tree in the description. Personally looking forward mostly to the bombers and some of the jet aircraft, the Yak-30 in particular. It's nice to have some other additions like the new attackers, the flying boat, and some of the fighters, but really I'm looking forward to the bombers and the jet fighters. They seem like they'll really improve the Soviet tech tree. Now this was actually a lot shorter than the other tech trees. I think the Soviet Union, Russia only gets about 13, 15 or so new aircraft. So mainly because their tech tree is the most complete. Japanese, on the other hand, get nearly something like 35, 40 new aircraft, and I haven't counted the Germans yet, but they get quite a lot. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to these new aircraft. It's good that they are focusing on the other nations as well, though. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like, leave any feedback or information on these aircraft that I wasn't able to find, particularly the R21. I would definitely like some appreciate any information on that. And subscribe if you like these videos. If you're enjoying the series, and I'll see you next time.